Welcome to HSM. Hey, I'm Scott Rubin, and I get to be on the Next Gen team around here. And can I just tell you that when I stop to think about it, it still amazes me that our high school ministry is happening right now in a bunch of different places. Think about that. Redlands HSM, I see you out there. Bellflower campus, you're looking good. Las Vegas HSM, fabulous as always. Park Rapids, Minnesota, I can see you right on the other side of that snowdrift over there. And finally, Anaheim. I'm so glad that y'all are with us. And get this, soon we're gonna be adding Eastside Irvine, which is also pretty amazing. So anyway, welcome, really glad you're here. Now, we're starting this series called More Than Friends. And it's about relationships, right? But we're not just gonna look at like one dimension of relationships. In fact, I really believe that the topic we're talking about today, it gets underrated when it comes to relationships, even though it happens in every single relationship that you have. Romantic relationships, platonic relationships, relationships with your family, relationships with your best pals, relationships with your ex-pals. And here's the topic. Today's topic is communication. Communication. Now, before you run away, before your brain goes somewhere else, go, whatever. Simple truth. If you get good at communicating, it makes your relationships better. And if you never grow at it, if you never grow at communicating, it's gonna lead to hurt feelings at best, and at worst, it's gonna lead to like relationship graveyards, and that's not cool. Now, sometimes messed up communication is funny, right? Like somebody says one thing and someone thinks another thing. When I was a kid, my dad told me about these old-timey comedians. Maybe you've heard of them. Their names are Abbott and Costello. And they were trying to talk about the names of players on a baseball team. And honestly, they sucked at communicating. They were just terrible. If your grandparents are still around, they could probably tell you about these guys. Just want you to take a look at really bad communication.
That's what I want to find out, the guy's name.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
Now, Abbott, you going to be the manager of the baseball team?
Yes.
You know the guy's names?
Well, I should.
Well, you tell me the guy's names on the baseball team.
I say, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
You ain't saying nothing to me yet. Go ahead and tell me.
I'm telling him.
You ain't said nothing yet. Go ahead and tell me.
Who's on first, what's on second, I don't know is on third.
You know the guy's names on the baseball team?
Yes.
Well, go ahead. Who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the guy's name.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I don't know.
Now, wait a minute,
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's his name.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
That's it. That's his name.
Well, you ain't said nothing. I ain't asked you nothing.
You did.
You know the guy's name on first base?
Sure.
Well, tell me the guy's name on first base.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who is on first, Lou?
What are you asking me for?
Now, don't get excited. I'm saying who.
I'm asking you a simple question. Who's on first?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's it.
That's who? I'm asking you, what's the guy's name on first base?
Oh, no, what's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
One base at a time.
Don't mix up my...
I'm not mixing up anybody. Now, what's the guy's name on first base?
Now, what is on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who is on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
I don't know what you thought. I think that's funny. I think it's funny. Who's on first? What's on second? But can I just tell you that when I'm trying to tell my wife something and she's not tracking with me, it's not funny. I'll say something and she'll say what? I'll say, I just told you. And she's like, it's not funny. But you and I think, can get trapped into thinking that chemistry is the most important part of relationships. And it's not. Because let's be honest, good chemistry, it's a pretty great feeling. It's a pretty great feeling. But if you throw in poor communication, you can pretty quickly watch attraction turn to repulsion. Chemistry disappears, and I've seen it happen lots and lots of times. Even with really good people, if you can't communicate, attraction doesn't really matter. So in these minutes that I have, I want to give you 3 tips. Just 3 tips, all right? 1, 2, 3. And if you can think about these tips, if you can think about these tips and you grab even just one of these tips, and let's be honest, you're probably not great at all 3 of these things that I'm gonna mention, but if you can grab one, I think it'll make a difference. And here's something interesting. 2 of these communication tips happen even before you open your mouth. Now, I'm betting that none of us are aces at all 3 of these, so here's the challenge. I want you to think about which of these 3 is the biggest trap for you. And maybe when you go to a small group, you can talk about that. Now, let me start with the first one. It's a good place to start. Avoid assuming. Avoid assuming stuff. And I say avoid because it's really hard to eliminate assumptions altogether. Like our brains are designed to figure out scenarios, right? You look for clues to make sense of situations. That's how you know you're a good human. So, example, maybe you've been here before. You text somebody something and you're starting to have the hots for this person, right? Yeah, that's how I say it. I know it's not how you say it, but you got the hots for somebody. And maybe it's just a text to a friend of yours. Maybe it's not someone you're romantically interested in, but when you were just with them, they told you that they'd be around all night. And they even asked you to text them. And so you get home and you're like looking for the dots on your screen at some point and you're like, okay, maybe they're not gonna text me yet. Maybe they're in the shower and hopefully not in the shower with their phone. And then 15 minutes go by and half an hour and then 2 hours and then 3 hours and then the whole night. And you don't hear back from them the whole night long. And then not even the next morning. Have you ever been there? Like, I'm not proud to say that sometimes I think to myself, dang, that person is just being a punk. They told me to text him and now they're ignoring that. Now they're ignoring me. And it's not cool. They're holding out on me. And honestly, they're pretty rude. And then later on when you talk to them, you find out that they lost their phone. They didn't even know where it was. Or maybe it's worse than that. You find out that their grandma fell down the stairs and their whole family went to the hospital and they left their phone at home and they were totally distracted. And then you feel like an idiot because you're like, man, I was so judging them. And in my mind, I was assuming stuff that's not true. Matthew, one of Jesus' closest followers, and he wrote down what Jesus said about giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. 2,000 years ago, before mirrors were even like commonly used, Jesus was basically saying to people, look in the mirror before you criticize somebody else. Check this out. Why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? He's just saying something big is in your own eye. He's just making a point. How can you even think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? And then he says, hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Don't assume that they're worse than you. So that's the first one to think about. Assumptions. You ever struggle with assumptions? Now let me give you a second one. I'll title this one, Run from Rumors. Run from rumors, because this is a relationship killer. I want to start this one with words from the Bible. I want to go right to scripture first. And from the book of Psalms, it says this, they visit me as if they were my friends, but all the while they gather gossip. And when they leave, they spread it everywhere. Have you ever known someone that was like, as if they were a friend, they were acting like they were a friend? Now, some people think this is kind of harmless and maybe even it's kind of fun, right? We joke about spilling the tea, and yes, I know that's a dated reference already, but I'm also not cool enough to know what it's currently called, so I'll just say that. But it's not harmless, you guys. It's a relationship killer. But for some reason, it's a human temptation to want to talk about unproven stuff about somebody else. And maybe, I don't know, probably we think it'll make us feel better about ourselves. And for a minute, it might actually make us feel better. But Paul wrote a letter to people in a town called Corinth years and years ago. And it actually begs us to believe the best about people. Believe the best about people. Don't spread rumors. Practically thinking, I want you to consider this for a minute. When you hear someone trash talking a person, or maybe making fun of somebody behind their back, did you ever wonder what that person says about you when you're not there? Honestly. Like, I've got a friend who loves to talk crap about people. And I got to thinking, what makes me think that they won't do the same thing about me when I'm not there? Like, of course they're nice to my face, but they're nice to that person's face. On the other hand, one of my favorite things to do is something that I like to call reverse gossip, all right? It's like the opposite of rumors. It's like better rumors. I like to say, let's think of somebody that we both know, somebody who's not here right now, not in the room, and I ask you to tell me something awesome about that person. Yeah, honestly, it's a blast. A lot of times I'll learn something amazing about somebody that I didn't know before. And you know what's interesting? A lot of times it'll get back to that person. Sometimes I'll go to that person and say, hey, you know what I heard about you? But the reverse is true too, is because when crap gets talked about somebody, it often gets back to them more than you think that it will. Now, let me spend one more second on this positive gossip thing, this reverse gossip thing. Oh, can I practice this just for a second? Lots of you know Nathan from our Anaheim campus. When I got to Eastside 3 years ago, he was one of the most welcoming people I met. He'd see me somewhere at an Anaheim campus and he'd make his way over to me, ask me if I needed help finding anything. He was just like that friend in a new environment. It's awesome about Nathan Woodward. If you know Nathan, you know what I'm talking about. Positive gossip. So just think for a second. Is there anybody here that's you? You need to run away from talking about rumors? Maybe that's you. Now let me give you a last one. And I'm pretty proud of the way I titled this, all right? I'm not gonna lie. Number 3 is listen like a lemur. Listen like a lemur. To communicate well, one of the gigantic keys is to use your ears more than your mouth, right? Did you know that lemurs can hear better than any animal in the world?
Wow.
Actually, that's not true. I made that up. I made it up because, alliteration, it sounds cool. Listen like a lemur. Lemurs could be deaf, I don't know, but I don't think they are. But what I'm trying to say is listen like the best listening animal in the world. Maybe that's a lemur, I don't know. But listen. Now, Jesus had a brother named James, and he said this: understand, my dear brothers and sisters, you must be quick to listen. Then he goes on and says, slow to speak, slow to get angry, but be quick to listen. To many people, myself included, I can think that talking is the key to communication. Like if I can express things better, that's better communication. But if we don't listen, we're not gonna know what to say back to somebody. I wonder if you've ever been in a situation like this. Your mom, your dad, your friend, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend, they're talking, and then they stop talking and you realize, I have no idea what you just said. Like those last 2 or 3 sentences, I totally could not repeat what you said. Now, sometimes it's because I was scrolling my phone while they were talking, and sometimes it's just because my mind was somewhere else and I wasn't paying attention. I do that with my wife, Lynette, more than I want to admit on camera. But you know what can help? Sometimes I say to her, hey, I'm super sorry, but can you repeat what you just said? Because my brain just totally wasn't there. Like I own it. Because the other option is what? I try to fake it, right? And I've tried that before. It doesn't work very well because I'm like, oh yeah, and I nod my head and whatever. And then I'll get a question and I'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, I just told you. The person can usually tell if you're not listening, and then you just look dumb. So can I give you one other pro tip about how to listen well? While the other person is talking, instead of thinking about what you're gonna say about whatever the topic is, consider this. While they're talking, be thinking of a question that you can ask them to clarify whatever it is that they're saying. And honestly, that does at least 2 things. One, it helps you go to a deeper level trying to understand whatever it is that they're trying to communicate, but it also shows care to a person, right? Not many people do this. When someone's talking, usually people are just thinking of what they're gonna say. But if you ever talk to somebody who follows up with good questions and says, oh, what about this? Or tell me about that. At least for me, I feel like they're actually interested in what I'm saying. So listen. Now communication. I talked about 3 things. 1, 2, 3. I juggle again. Can anybody juggle? I juggle better than I do. Maybe you're an ace at all 3, but come on, man. I doubt it. When you go to your small group, be thinking, which of these 3 things could you think about more this week? Like which of these 3 things could you own a little bit more? Do you need to avoid assuming? Is that you? Do you need to run away from rumors? Is that you? Or do you need to listen like a lemur or just like an animal that listens really good? I don't know. Hey, HSM, love being with you guys. Have a great small group conversation, dig into this stuff, and we will see you on campus next week.